5 cycle start tips for Last Epoch. Today we're going to go over some great tips to make sure your cycle start in Last Epoch kicks ass. In case you're new around here, the name of the game is always going to be speed. These tips are largely going to be focused on getting you to the in-game content as quickly as possible. A scalable build is absolutely without question my #1 recommendation for a cycle start. In short, a scalable build is one that you can increase both the offenses and defenses of without really relying on any unique or set items or any super rare affixes. This build will need to carry you through empowered monoliths so you can actually farm up some of that gear, and this is doubly important if you plan on playing in the trade faction this cycle. If you're out selling gear before the majority of the player base, you're getting ahead of the economy. By doing this allows you to secure a lot of the gear that you need for your builds before it all skyrockets. Welcome to being Warren Buffett. Leveling skills can be super useful. Let's face it, a lot of skills suck until you have the right gear. You don't want that to slow you down as you move through the story or the early monolith, so you might consider using certain skills like Lightning Blast early on in the game to clear that content as quickly as possible. That way you can get that gear to get your build online so you can really start flying. Additionally, this means being really conscious of your mana costs early game, as well as focusing on skills that have good synergy so you're taking advantage of using leveling skills as much as possible. I'd put a list of good leveling skills here, but I have like 15 mages. This is also stuff you guys can learn for yourself, as Last Epoch's skill system and respecking is super forgiving. This one's pretty simple. We're going to be some broke bitches early cycle, so we're going to need to set loot filters that look for a ton of affixes. We want to focus on affixes for our build, generally useful affixes such as life, health, spell damage, so on, and then really rare affixes. We want to stack as many of these affix shards as quickly as possible so we can get back to crafting. And this will be really useful for the trade faction because we'll want to be crafting gear to sell pretty early on that enables some of those most popular meta builds. Skip focusing on gear too much early on. If you're looking at gear every 10 levels as you're going through the story, or even early in the monolith, you're going to be wasting time. You level so quickly that gear becomes irrelevant 10, 15, 30 minutes later. It's a much better idea to look at your gear when you're having problems with clear or you're having problems with defense. That'll keep you focused on just getting through the story as quickly as possible and only checking on the gear when it's causing a problem. This also saves us very valuable affix shards early on because, as we just discussed, those are going to be in short supply. The last tip is to stay under the area level that you're in while you're going through the story. You don't want to waste time killing monsters that aren't giving you enough XP, and you really just want to push to the monolith as quickly as possible anyway. I'd rather be running echoes at level 48 to 50 than sitting through the story all the way up to level 60. We want to get to the monolith as quickly as possible because that's where the best gear drops. The amount you stay under leveled is really up to your player skill, comfort level, and build, but I'll generally stick somewhere between 3 and 8 levels under the area level as I'm moving through the story. In summary, no diva builds for your starter. Don't be afraid to use leveling skills until you get your gear. Keep an eye out for affix shards and shatter often. Don't focus on gear too much early game, and try to stay under level in the area you're in while you're moving through the story. By applying these 5 tips at the start of a cycle, you're helping yourself get to the monolith as early as possible. This puts us in the best position to farm gear, work on our build, and generally speaking, just be ahead of the pack. If you found this content helpful, make sure to like and subscribe and check me out on Twitch for the launch of Last Epoch.